just believe in the power of healing and restoration. And I know that if we can just come together and speak about the hard things, we can finally begin to heal. So, this is where we heal. Welcome to another episode of This Is Where We Heal. Today I have Christy Wilson-Smith, and this is a very interesting story because typically I find people online that I'm inspired by, but Christy I actually met in the sauna at my gym, and I'm so excited to have her today because her story it was so inspiring that I had to ask her to come on the show and just exist as the person that she is and talk to inspire and uplift you guys. Her story is incredible. She's incredible. Her energy is incredible. And I couldn't be more excited to have her today. Thank you so much for coming.
Well, thank you. And like you said, meeting in the spa, hopefully I look a lot better than I did that day because I was dripping. When she goes, "Have you ever been on a podcast?" I was like, "What? You want me on a podcast?"
Yeah, your face was like, well
I
have, but what? No, it was so cool. So what happened was, just for the listeners so that they understand, you were sitting in the sun, and I just went, and I usually just kind of do my own thing in there. I put my headphones in and don't really listen, but I kept overhearing the conversation, and I kept thinking, man, this story is incredible. But it was the first thing I heard you say that caught my attention, and that was when I decided to start eavesdropping, actually. But I heard you say, yeah, my husband's going through cancer treatment for about 8 years. He was given 2 weeks to live, and he's still here.
Yes.
And you said, and I quote, you said, I come here and take care of myself so that when I'm there, I can be my best for him. And I was like, whoa, like that, like just stood out to me so much while we were sitting in there, because to me, that's like such a testament of love, you know,
you hear that. Yes.
And love for him.
You hear that so much. You hear people saying you've got to take care of yourself, but it is so true. And the gym, like I had just joined it too, because it's like, I've got to do something to keep me upbeat and going. And I too, the sauna is my safe haven. I just love it in there.
Yeah.
Like I walk in and smell it and I go, "Hello, old friend." Luckily, nobody's in there when I do that. But yeah, you've got to take care of yourself so that when I go home to him, and he's very self-sufficient. He's a Marine.
Oh.
So that tells you enough. And, he doesn't like to be taken care of, but taking care of me mentally and physically is so important. And it's so important for anybody going through anything in life. And we've all been through stuff in life. You can't get, especially to be my age, and not have things happen to you. So,
but I just thought that was so beautiful that in your mind you were thinking, like, the more I care for myself, the more I can show up for him.
And I want to show him the best of me and help him be positive and everything. And he's very positive. He doesn't have a choice being married to me. He's got to be positive.
But see that your energy is very, infectious, which is amazing. So I'm sure that's like, maybe he wasn't always, but then he met you and
he met me.
So I want to go back then, because I know you've also had your own cancer journey, but I want to get into that too. But I want to go back because I'm such a romantic. I'm just a romantic through and through. And I want to go back to how you met your husband. And I want you to tell the story about what led you here and tell us about your relationship but we'll start there.
It's so bizarre. So I had actually was on my second divorce, which, the minute you say that, people immediately judge you. Oh, been divorced twice. What's wrong with you? But you can't judge people because you don't know what led up to that.
Yeah, that's right.
And my first divorce was, he had been in a car accident. I have a thing with car accidents. He'd been in a car accident. And when we were in college and the Jeep tipped over and he rubbed his head against the concrete. But it changed him, but I didn't know that. He was a really good guy, but our personalities were exactly the same and we butted heads all the time. It just wasn't a healthy relationship. And so we divorced, and I was never going to get married again, definitely. And I went on a blind date with this man, and it was great. And we married, and 2 years after we got married, I was leaving my school. I was teaching high school music, and I was leaving and drove down the highway, and there was a car accident. And it was him and my baby, our baby, was in the car. And so I drove up on it not knowing that it was my family. And I stuck with him. He was in a coma for 8 months and everything. And I was like, my choir actually was performing in Carnegie Hall. And I didn't even go to that. I had to send him with the band director so that, I could stay. My husband was in a coma. I'm not leaving. And when you talk about being positive on that, I won't do a lot on that, but they kept saying, he's in a coma, he can't hear you. And I'm like, I don't believe that. And so I would go in there and I would sing all the time. I would sing in his ear. And he hated Barney. And I would go, I love you. And then I'd go, you better wake up or you're stuck in Barney hell forever. And the people actually called in the hospital psychiatrist on me.
What?
And so I'm like, so what's going on? And he goes, well, there's been some concern. I said, look, I know I'm coming off like a crazy lady, but I'm doing what I need to do to get him out of this coma. And so to make a long story short, when he finally came out, he couldn't talk and he had a trach in. And I go, do you want to watch TV? And I go, yeah, because they told me they didn't know what the brain injury was going to be.
Yeah.
Bad. And so I'm flipping through the channels and he goes, stops me and I turn around. It's Barney. And I go, Barney? And he goes, and I was like, he's there. He's in there. And I ran out and they called the hospital psychiatrist on me again.
Oh
and I was like, he flipped off Barney. He flipped off Barney. So anyway, we ended up divorcing because he wanted me to find someone that could play ball with the kids because he had a lot of injuries and just be out there. And so we did. We actually went to court together and had dinner afterwards and laughed at people and everything. And we became, good friends. So once again, I was never going to get married again.
Right.
So we go to the zoo. I take my son who was 5. I didn't have the older one with me. We go to the zoo. And he starts talking to this other little boy who was 5 at the zoo. And I'm not paying attention. I look over and there's this guy over there with more kids. And my son, Patrick, turns around and said, hey, this is my friend Brandon. Can we hang out? Well, then he comes over and he goes, hi, my name's Charlie Smith. And I go, I'm Jane Doe. So I'm like, nobody is named Charlie Smith. Like, are you kidding me? And he goes, no, I'm really Charles Smith. And he brings out his ID and it says Charles Smith. And I'm like, oh, I go, well, I'm really not Jane Doe. And he goes, I didn't think so. And I go, I'm Kristi. And then so he goes, well, do you mind if we walk around with you? And I'm like, well, you seem harmless.
Right.
It's like, oh, okay. I mean, we have all these kids with us. And so we walk around the zoo, and then he asked me if we'd all like to go to dinner. So we went to P.O.'s in St. Charles and had dinner together. And that was it. We were from then on.
You're kidding.
Like, we were together. It was
what?
Yeah.
Like together?
Together. Like
so you just kind of like knew?
I actually before we got married and before we got engaged or whatever, I actually took him to meet my husband that was in the car accident to see if he liked him.
And he did, obviously.
And he did. And so when Charlie and I got married, both of my ex-husbands were at the wedding.
Aww.
As my sons now like to call it, my trifecta. You gotta love older sons, but we all get along. We exchanged. Well, my first husband has passed away since, and his wife and I are best friends. Like we vacation together. We do holidays together. And it's funny when people go, how do you guys know each other? And it's like, wow.
We're not going to get into that.
And my oldest
today.
son likes to go, my two moms. And so then people think we're like a couple. And I'm like, I'll have to go, no, we're not.
Not those kind of moms.
It doesn't matter.
Either
because,
way.
I mean, we will go to dinner together and like, try this wine, try this. Oh, here. And like, we look like
You're
a couple.
besties. You're besties. I love that so much.
And my husband, when my oldest got married, he walked both of the moms down the aisle. Because I'm like, no, you helped raise this child too, who's not a child. He's 37.
Right.
I said, no. He walked us both down the aisle. So it's complicated, but it's in a good complicated. And a lot of people are blessed to have that.
Yeah, they are. So how long have you and Charlie been married?
28 years.
28 years.
It'll be 28 tomorrow. Yeah.
Aww.
Tomorrow.
Oh my God. Well, happy early
I knew
anniversary.
we were going out, but yeah.
Oh
Been
my
together
gosh.
28 years, so.
And so do you still feel like because you had said, like, I didn't want to get married again after your first marriage. You didn't want to get married again after your second marriage, which I can relate, right? And I
Yeah.
think every person feels that way right after divorce,
Oh, yeah.
right? They're like, it's just never going to happen
And I
again.
wasn't looking.
Yeah, and you do. You kind of just shut that part of yourself off
Mhm.
for a while. If you're, ready to, like, fully invest in yourself anyway. But, like, do you feel like after 28 years, are you just, like, so grateful that you made that choice?
Oh, yes. Yes. Like we have so much fun together. He puts up with my nonsense and my craziness, and we've been on this journey together, and he helped me through my cancer. So I know what he's going through. I've been through it. And like, we're going camping next weekend in a tent, by the way, people. Maybe 67 years old. The only bad thing is crawling out to go pee in the middle of the night. That's not too good on the body, but we go camping. We do, yeah.
So you guys are like best friends.
We are. We do a lot of things together, and he does all my sound and traveling when I do my singing at nursing homes and things.
That's so sweet. Do you feel like there were certain things about him before you even got married that you were like, this is my person? Were there things that just, like, registered right away?
He was just so kind. He was so kind. And I mean, who puts up with, let me introduce you to my ex-husband before we get married? Who puts up with that?
Yeah.
He did. We were looking for cars, and he goes, because my ex-husband at the time, he still couldn't drive and stuff. Well, do we need to get a bigger car so he can go with us? Like, that's the kind of person he was, a very, very kind person.
Just gentle and like, sweet and considerate.
And, considering he's, was a Marine, like I said.
Which is wild, right?
Yeah.
Because that's not what you would expect from a military person at all.
But he's a good guy. He really is.
How long did you guys date before you were, like, engaged and then married? Tell me. I can see it in your face. Tell me.
I think it was 10 days.
I love
I know.
Like, the romantic in me is just like, yay. Oh my gosh, that's so sweet. But you know what? I've heard that so many times when I like talk to people that are married and still really happily married after like years and years and years.
And we've been through our times. I mean, we've been through hell and back.
Yeah, I would say if you've been through cancer and he's going through cancer.
Well, I mean, not even that, just even family stuff.
Yeah,
I mean, we've been through it.
But even to say, like, but that's the key. The key is, like, after 28 years, you're like, you can still talk about him in a way like you're like, I really like this person.
Oh,
and I think that's very telling.
Yeah, we're in love. I mean, we're definitely in love. Like, when I officiate a lot of weddings, and people will say, don't talk to Christy and Charlie because that's not the way it's always going to be. And I'm like, yeah, it is. It can be, because we're that way. Though I'm getting ready to do a wedding down in Mississippi, and she said, well, you can stay with all of us, or you can have your own private. And I'm like, we want the private.
See,
maybe 67, but I'm not dead.
Yes, and I'm still in love.
I'm still in love, and we still have fun.
I fully believe that when you meet the right person for you, that's how it is. I do. I will never let go of that belief. And I know a lot of people get jaded by, divorce, and they get jaded by heartbreak. And I've been jaded myself at times where I was like, you know what? I'm done. I don't believe in it anymore. It's never going to happen. But I've seen too many people that are still so in love after this much time that I know it's real. I know it's there. Yeah. I know it exists, and I know that I can have that, and I know that my listeners can have that.
You can.
And I love hearing stories like this.
Take care of you and always be you. Don't change for who you think the guy wants you to be. Like I say, be yourself. Everyone else is already taken. I've always thought that. Always be you. And like you said, when you met me, take care of yourself.
Yeah.
You've got to take care of yourself, and you're not being selfish. People my age especially, well, you're being selfish. You're being selfish.
Yeah, but the more you take care of yourself, the more you have to give other people.
Yeah. When my second husband was in the coma, I couldn't sleep because I could see, they put me in the wrong ambulance, and I saw the face of the kid that hit him, and his face was cut open. And I was like, get me out of here. Get me out of here. This isn't my husband. This isn't my husband. And they sent me to a tanning bed. The hospital sent me to a tanning bed, and they said, if you go into the tanning bed and you close your eyes, you won't be able to see those images. Because I hadn't slept in like 3 or 4 days, more than that. And it worked. I went to the tanning bed, and I'm like, this is just dumb. Shouldn't be here. There was something about I couldn't visualize the kid's face in my head. And so I slept, like I slobber slept.
Wow.
And I had to go every day to the tanning bed so I could sleep. And I had a little pager from the hospital and everything, but they told me, my mom was like, that's just not right. You're all tan and looking good. But I realize now that was me taking care of me.
Yeah.
Because I had 2 young kids at home.
Yeah.
A single mom with, a 5-year-old and a 1-year-old.
I can't believe, I can't even imagine. How did you stay positive during that? Like with your husband in the hospital in a coma, not knowing, with the doctor saying he may not ever wake up, and you have 2 little kids at home. Like I
had my time. I mean, there were the times when I just knew I had to be that way. But I would go out like at 3 a.m. and sit on the porch swing and just cry and cry and cry. But I knew I had to be strong. I had, you have to be strong no matter what. I'm having to be strong right now.
Yeah.
For Charlie, even though he thinks he doesn't need me to be strong.
Right.
I have to be strong for him to get through this. And you find the fun, you find the humor. The humor. People get so mad at me because I laugh at stuff.
Yeah, but you have to.
Yeah. I mean, we laugh.
Yeah, you have to. Laughter, I mean, and honestly, they say that's a huge indication too of like a healthy relationship, is like when 2 people can laugh together, like it creates such a beautiful and strong bond.
When I was
when
I was going through my breast cancer, I was teaching middle school, and I let the kids know the good, the bad, the ugly of everything. And my position for radiation was to lay like this. And so I'd walk in, I'd tell my middle school choir, I go, hit the position, they'd all go like that. Well, one week it was Spirit Week, and I always dressed up. I was that weird teacher that always dressed up in everything. And I went in right before, it was almost my last treatment, and the machine broke down, and I was dressed up like a hippie because it was hippie day. And they said, we were going to have to come back. Well, I knew I had a concert the next day, and it usually took me a day after radiation to be a human again.
Yeah.
And I'm laying there like this, and I start crying, but I didn't want them to know it, and the tears were, and she comes around, she goes, you're crying. Our favorite patient's crying. And they're like, hippies don't cry. And I don't know why. I just go, I need some pot. I'm not a drug person. It just came out of my mind. And she goes, that's our girl. And they're like, we will get it fixed. We will get it fixed. And so I'm like, okay. And so I was leaving. And they're like, what's tomorrow? And I go, tomorrow's pajama day. And they're like, we can't wait. And I walk out, and then I'm like, I walk back in. I go, by the way, did I mention I sleep in the nude? And I just turned around and walked out. They were like, what? So I was telling Ashley the other day, I was walking down the same corridor where we're at with my husband, and my radiologist walks by, and I didn't say anything to her. It's been 17 years. Who remembers? And so as I'm walking, the second time I saw her, she stopped and she goes, you. And I'm like, you remember me? And she goes, we don't remember your name. She goes, but we called you Miss Bubbly. Aww, and I was like, oh, so I had a nickname. I taught middle school. I've been called so much worse. I'll take Miss Bubbly.
I love it. Honestly,
but she remembered me because of being positive. So.
Yeah, right. And I'm sure like with a job like they have, like staying positive is probably hard even for them because you're seeing the worst of the worst all the time.
All the time. And you've got the people that look the doomsday part of it.
Well, they do. And there's no ever any guarantees too. So they probably grow attached to people, and then have to see them go. And I would imagine that'd be really hard. So I'm sure like you coming in there just with this positive energy and this
for her to
great
remember
big personality, it was just like such a light because
I was just walking down the hall.
Right. But I mean, such a change in pace for them, something to really look forward to every day.
Yeah. And then she started asking about what all I had done. And I told her about the Queen thing. And
okay, we're getting to that too. Yeah. But so I want to go back a little bit though. How long had you been married when you were diagnosed with your breast cancer?
We had just been married for 3 or 4 years.
Oh my gosh.
We were newlyweds at the time. So.
Oh. And how did that affect your marriage? Do you feel like in what ways was he able to show up for you that helped you get through?
Once again, I'm kind of like him. I really didn't.
You didn't want the help. Exactly.
I don't want the help from anybody.
Yeah.
But he just, with the kid, he took care of the kids. He took care of me. He was still working we were both still working full time. He was just always, what do you need? What can I do for you? What do you need? What? And he's still like that.
Yeah.
Like he's going through it right now, but he'll ask me, what can I do for you? And I'm like,
my
I'm fine. What can I
gosh.
fix you for supper tonight? What do you?
What?
And I'm like, I'll fix you supper. Well, I can't cook, so that he may be in the
You're like,
hospital.
it's just the idea, though, right?
He may be in the hospital for another thing. If I could.
Let me cook you supper. Never mind.
Never mind. No, I'm good.
But the thought counts.
Yeah.
It sure does.
So it was tough, like going through it right after. And my family, there was no history of cancer anywhere, but leave it to me to forge the road.
Let's hope it ends with you, right?
I hope so.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh. But no, I think that's incredible. And that says a lot about him. And it says a lot about you that like you both just show up for each other. Who was I talking to? I was talking to a friend the other day and I was like, life gets really good when you fill your own cup to where it's overflowing. So you have plenty to continually give. And when that person is doing the same, so you can both keep watering each other and no one ever runs
and
empty.
to other people too.
Yeah.
I mean, it spills over.
Yes.
To my students when I was teaching, to the seniors that I'm around, the senior women, especially that think they have to act a certain way. And it's like, no, just because you're old does not mean you're done.
Yeah, exactly. You still get to
and
live.
He loves that about me. Just, that I act not my age.
But you know what? That's, again, like you said, going back to be yourself, because how can someone ever love you if they don't really know who you are?
Yeah.
And I do think that's a huge part in finding the right person for you, is being fully yourself so that they know who you are and they can fall in love with who you are, not who you're pretending to be.
Yeah. I don't know how many times I've had people tell me that my personality is too big and I shouldn't act the way I do for my age. So many times. Even when I was younger, it's like, you're so loud and it's who I am.
Yeah. It's who you are.
It's growing up in a funeral home is what did it, because I had to be quiet for 15 years of my life.
Oh my gosh. Talk about that.
Well, I grew up in a small town. My parents owned a funeral home, so we lived in the funeral home. Like, here was my bedroom, here was the embalming room, here was the casket room, there was the chapel. So my dad was a stickler on when there was visitations and stuff that we were quiet.
Right.
And so I was quiet until we moved into a real house when I was 15, and I could be loud and didn't have to answer, Clary Funeral Home, how may I help you? And I just started living.
You were like,
my dad was like, damn, why are you so loud? And I'm like, it's your fault. It's your fault.
You can't be silent for 15 years.
Yeah, but that got me, I learned to be crazy, but I learned to be respectful.
Yeah, no.
And that's when I started singing. I started singing at funerals when I was 15.
Oh my gosh,
and
you're kidding.
What made me become a choral director.
Oh my gosh, that's
15.
So cool.
No, when I was 10. When I was 10, I started singing in funerals.
Oh my gosh, I think it was 9 or 10 when I started singing at church. But wow,
at funerals. I'd be outside playing in the dirt because I was a big tomboy. And luckily we were behind a curtain, and I would just come in and little piano player would play, and I'd sing into the microphone, and then I'd go back out and play. And I sang at my ex-husband's funeral, which was tough. But I mean, once again, everybody's like, "Wait, this is weird," and it's like, no, it's not weird.
No, it's not weird at all.
She asked me to do it, and I did it for my son and for
I was gonna say, I bet you that your kids. Because, and that's what I think. When you get divorced or if a relationship doesn't work out, I feel like when you have kids, you have to put what's going to be best for them first.
Yes, you do.
Even if you don't like that person, you show up a certain way because you want them to see your character.
My boys are very, very healthy.
Yeah.
They're very healthy with stuff.
Because they
and their
saw
wives
that.
are amazing, and they saw it. And they've seen what I've been through, too.
And I bet you they're so, so grateful that you were able to have those relationships with your ex-husbands. Because it made life easier for them.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did. And it's important.
Yeah, there's nothing
and a lot of people can't do that and can't get past. I'm just blessed that I was able to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, you are blessed. But you also have to cultivate it, too.
Yeah, but also when people are like, once again, oh, you've been divorced twice. It's immediately, there's this stigma put on you. And it's like, no, it's not like that.
I agree. I totally agree. Because like you said, you never know what the circumstances are.
Let me tell you my story, then judge me.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to judge me after you hear my story.
Yeah, exactly. I had a friend the other day that was talking about he does like health, like home care for people. And one of his patients for a while he was on his third marriage and he had lost his wife and he had but he said, like she was the love of my life. Like his first 2 marriages did not work out.
Yeah.
And he said, but my third wife, she was the love of my life. And so I just think, again, it's just another indication that, you know what? Things happen and that's okay, but that person still is out there for you. And it doesn't matter if it's the third or fourth or fifth relationship. You just don't stop believing in love and don't stop believing in the possibility that God has someone for you.
And stop looking for the right person. The right person will find you.
Yeah.
Even if it's standing in front of the bears.
As long as you're being yourself.
Standing in front of the bears at the St. Louis Zoo. Which is not real romantic.
With kids.
They stink.
I love it. That's so awesome to me. So what advice would you give, like, young women, let's just say, we'll say they're on their first divorce or their second divorce, whatever it is. Like, what advice would you give them if you could go back to yourself? Maybe just say you're looking at yourself and you're at that stage where you're like, I'm done. It's never going to happen for me. Like, what could you say to them?
Well, I would say at first I thought I had to find somebody. Like, then I did the I'm done. Because sometimes you feel just so alone, and it's like, what's wrong with me?
Yes.
And there's nothing wrong with you. Just you work on yourself a little bit. And I didn't do that really well. I did not do that well. And I wish I'd taken more time. Not that things would have turned out. Things have turned out the way God wants them to.
Yeah.
And things are turning out so that my story can maybe help somebody else.
Yes.
All the craziness that's gone on, that you can be a positive person for somebody else, and you never know. Like I said, my life philosophy that I did, they had us write a life philosophy of 35 seconds or less. And when you're 67 years old and you're trying to write 35 seconds? And everybody's always, take care of your mental health, take care of your physical health. Mine was so bizarre. And I want to share it because I think it's important. I loved my life philosophy because I grew up on the Current River, and I was laying there thinking in the river, and I was looking at the rocks, and it's like, have you ever noticed rocks in a river? Some are small and some are large. Some are smooth and some are rough. They're all different, but they're all beautiful, and they work together to guide the river. And we are like those rocks. Look around. We're all different, but we're all beautiful, and we work together to guide the river of life.
Yes.
But never be afraid to make ripples, no matter how small, because we never know how far they may reach.
Oh.
It's okay to be different. I'm different, and I'm proud of it. So we need to work together to make a positive impact in this river called life.
Oh, that's so good.
And that was my life philosophy. And, the ripples, last Saturday, I was honored at a school that I taught at. I left there 32 years ago.
Oh, my gosh.
And I was, honored as a legacy outstanding teacher. And it's like those ripples, that little ripple. But my name tag was hilarious because it said, Christy Wilson-Smith. It had all my names on it. So I clicked the picture and sent it to both of my adult boys, and they were like, whoa, that tells a story, doesn't it? I'm like, yeah.
I love it.
You should have put my maiden name on there. I look like a soap opera. Christy Clary Gathright Wilson-Smith. It's like days of our lives.
Hey, you know what? It really is, though, isn't it?
It's hilarious.
I think life is sometimes exciting and dramatic as the soap operas. At least for me.
You have to, and once again, I have to laugh at it.
Yeah,
you have to laugh at it. It's my life.
It is but you know what? That's it. You own it.
But take care of you. Take some time after a divorce, and stop looking for that perfect someone.
I agree.
It's going to happen.
I had made this video that went just crazy, and I couldn't believe it. But I was just sitting there one day and thinking about that, and I was like, God has a perfect person for you, not a perfect person.
No.
There's no such thing as a perfect person, but there is a person that is perfect for you. And will they be flawed? Yes. Will you be flawed? Yes. But God knows the person that is the right fit, the person that just is going to come into your life, and it's going to make sense.
You're going to know in 10 days.
And you're going to know, and they're going to know. And maybe it's 10 days, maybe it's 3 months, maybe
2 years.
Maybe it's 2 years, but it'll just work.
Yeah.
It'll work, and that person will see you for who you are and love who you are.
Authentically you.
Yes, authentically you, and you will see who they are, and you will love who they are authentically, and that's how you know. But I totally love that. I just think that, no matter how many things haven't worked out, no matter how many things you have to go through, one day you'll get there. And
Yeah.
that's not even the whole point. The point
No.
isn't to find someone. It's really to find yourself, because once you find yourself, all the right people come
Yes.
into your life anyway.
Yes. Well, yesterday I went to lunch with some senior women that were in the pageant thing, and they were the new class. And one of the ladies said to me, she's from Kenya,
Ooh.
and she's just very smart, like wise
Yeah.
with what she says. And I said, even at my age, there's women that are jealous of you and women that don't like you. And she said, but Kristi, when you find your tribe.
Yeah.
She goes, you find your tribe. And that stuck. It was only yesterday, but it was like, she is so right. No matter where you are in life, when you find your tribe, that's who you stick with.
Bingo. And you'll know it.
You will know it.
It'll come with peace and not confusion. And that's for friendships. That's for family. That's for
relationships, everything. And
romantic
sometimes family,
relationships.
you have to go
work.
You're not. Sometimes it's your own family. You have to go, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You're doing me more damage than you are good.
Well, and the thing is that when you've been through enough, and when you've really been able to get humbled by life, you stop judging people.
Mm-hmm.
You realize, like, you know what? It's not my job to criticize who they are, what they do, how they do it, how many mistakes they make.
Those without sin cast the first stone.
Exactly. And so for me in my life, at this stage of my life, it's not that there's anyone that I don't absolutely fully love. But if you can't show up in my life and just remember that I'm human too, and allow me to be human, because I'm going to do that for you. I'm going to show up and love you and support you regardless of your mistakes and your flaws. I'm going to do my best to do that for you, because
and I'm going to make my mistakes too.
But I am allowed to also be human.
Yeah.
And so the people that can't do that for me, I just learned to create space from. And it's not that I don't still love them.
No, I get that.
And because it's, you can love someone, but they don't necessarily have to have access to
and they don't necessarily have
parts.
to know that you've backed off even.
Yeah,
Sometimes they don't even know.
Yeah, in fact, I gave my daughter this lesson the other day. She was talking about it. She's like, I don't really want to be friends with, so-and-so anymore. And I said, Emmy, you don't have to be friends with anyone you don't want to be. And she goes, but I don't know how to say it. And I said, you don't have to say it.
Don't have to say it.
You don't have to tell someone you don't want to be
them.
friends. In fact, that'll just hurt their feelings and make it worse. Like sometimes you can just decide that, you know what, this person makes me feel bad. And you can create space.
Just slowly back away.
Yeah, you can create space, and you can still love them and still be kind to them and nice to them. But
you don't have to say harsh words.
Yeah,
I saw too much of that when I was teaching.
Oh, I bet.
And I would say they called the things that I did. They called Miss Wilson-Smith life lessons, and they always knew my kids always knew when I was going to be real with them. I told them things that teachers, like I fell and at Fast Eddie's and blacked both of my eyes. And so I went to school the next day, and it was like, what happened? I go, well, I was in a skiing accident down at Hidden Valley. And they're like, really? And I go, yeah, I hit a tree. And they're like, oh. And I go, you know what, guys, that's not the truth. And so I went and I closed the door and I said, raise your right hand. What happens in the choir room stays in the choir room. And they all did. I said, so the truth is, I was out with the young teachers and I wanted to be cool. And I had on jeans that were way too tight for me and high heels. And I went into the restroom and I couldn't get my pants pulled down. And I lost my balance with the high heels and I reached out, but I was in the handicap stall and I missed the wall and my feet came out and I went straight down. And I go, that's the truth, guys. And they were dying laughing. And I'd go, but look, it was all just so crazy. And of course, Charlie took me to the hospital the next day because I woke up not knowing. I go, is there something wrong with my eyes? Well, of course, they made him step out of the room. And I had no idea that they thought he had punched me. And he knew exactly why they were doing it. And my story sounded so, I was trying to pull. They were like, what really happened? I'm like, no, that's the truth. As I was telling the kids that. Or, when you get older, you get the flappy arms. I was always like, we're like kids, the pterodactyl. We do the pterodactyl. These are high school kids.
Oh, they probably loved it.
One time I took a Sharpie and drew like a bat on my arms. And then I was like, oh, crap, I've got radiation today.
Oh, no.
So I was like, how can I get this off? And I took a magic eraser, Miss Wilson-Smith Life Lessons. Magic erasers leave burns on you.
Oh.
Like chemical burns.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Ouch.
It took a week.
No wonder they work so well.
Yeah, they work well, but they take your skin off. So Miss Wilson-Smith Life Lessons. So once again, I tell you, the kids go, yeah, we remember the songs and the dances that you taught us, but we remember the real stuff that you told us.
No, it's good. It's good to be real with kids too, and teach them that it's okay to be yourself. But so I want to get to the other thing that you talked about when you were in the sauna that was, I just loved it. I thought it was the greatest thing ever because, so I'm 38. Obviously been divorced. I'm kind of rebuilding my life at this stage. And I know so many of the people that follow me and listen to the show, they're in the same position, right? They're starting over. And sometimes you get to where, I think if there's like something that happens after 35 where you start getting this fear of like the clock is ticking and I can't do that because I'm 38. I'll be 39 this year. Or, you just start getting in this mentality of like, I can't do things that I thought I was going to do or that I could do because of my age or whatever. But what I loved was that you said it was 2 years ago.
Yeah,
you did
23.
your first pageant. You got into pageants, which is so random.
No, I didn't even get into it. My sister, we were having wine one night, and we had lost our dad, and 6 weeks later, we lost our baby sister. So it was my sister and I had just retired, all this. And she goes, we need to find something for you to do. Well, we saw this senior woman, and she goes, you need to do that. And I'm like, yeah, I do.
Senior women competition?
Do what?
It was a senior women competition?
Yeah.
Okay.
You have to be 60 or over. It's called Miss Missouri Senior America. And she talked me into it. We signed up that night. And then the next day it was like, what? I'm not a pageant person. And so, but I was committed and it's like, okay, I'll try. And my husband was like, you know what? You're the most beautiful woman in the world. You need to do this. And I go, well, it's not a beauty pageant. He goes, but you're the most beautiful. I mean, he tells me this all the time. You're so beautiful. And he goes, I want you to do this. And I'm like, all right, well, I'll do it. I mean, talk about supportive. Oh my gosh. He went to every single event. So go back to the pageant. I ended up winning.
What?
And so I was Miss Missouri Senior America 2023. And, I did 255 events in the last 2 years. And by events, I mean, I put on the sash, the crown. I either spoke a lot to women's groups and senior clubs and high schools, went and read to little kids. They thought I was Cinderella.
Oh, that's
one little boy
so
goes,
cute.
He goes, queens have iPhones?
Yes, they do.
But it goes to show even now, like you can be a certain age. Like I said, I'm 67. But it didn't stop me from doing this and still acting the way I act. And it was amazing. It kind of brought me back into being me again.
Yes.
And like I said, Charlie, he never missed an event ever. He was my photographer. He was my driver. He did all the sound system. And still, what are we doing next? Let's go. I mean, we'll be on a float trip looking horrible. And he'll go, do you know who this is? Don't tell people who I am looking like this.
Oh my God.
But that was something the radiologist, when I ran into her, she said, well, what have you been up to? And I said, you're not going to believe this. And then finally she goes, I would. So we had to do, evening gown, talent, interview with the judges, and then life philosophy.
Wow.
And I knew I could do talent. I knew I could do interview. I knew I could do life philosophy. Walking like a lady in an evening gown. Oh, let me tell you, girls, that takes some work.
Oh yeah, it does. I used to be able to run a marathon in heels, and you put heels on me now, and I'm like a giraffe, like a newborn giraffe. I can barely walk.
I could hear my dad saying, "Well, you look like you're plowing 40 acres." That was always in my head. I was like, but I was once again myself, and I had people say, you need to tone your personality down. And it was like, no, if I'm not, this was before I won. It's like, no, if I'm not who they want, then this isn't for me.
Exactly.
And I was myself, and I continue to be. I still have people saying, and I won, and it's been a blast. It's such a blessing to be able to. My biggest thing is going to nursing homes and singing and speaking to the nursing home people. I just, that it has nothing to do. It's nothing about me. Mm-hmm. It's them. And it's like, oh my gosh, I just see the joy in their faces when you sing a certain song or whatever. It's so fun.
Oh, that's so sweet. What got you started doing that?
The Cameo Club, which sponsors the pageant. Oh. They do that. We go to nursing homes. And so then I've branched out and I do my own too. I do like a hour-long show of talking
Oh,
and singing and dancing and twirling the baton.
oh, that's
I
so
do.
sweet, though. I feel like,
I see my grandma sitting there is what I do. Every one I walk into, and my grandma and I were like this. I walk in and I picture her and I just give it my all. I mean, I perform like I'm performing for her, and she loved every minute of it, and it's gonna make me cry. But she would have been so proud of me doing
oh,
this.
she 100% is, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, they are. My mom and dad. My mom and dad, my grandma. They always send me messages.
They do.
I see my cardinal come by, and I'm like, right when I need it, the cardinal flies by.
Sweet. Oh my gosh,
I call that my messages.
You know, I think it's so beautiful that going into a pageant, which you had never done in your entire life,
And will
weren't
never do
planning to
again.
and doing it, you were drunk on wine and just
I
went for
wasn't
it.
drunk. Well, okay, maybe a little bit.
You were hopped up on wine, and you were just like, whatever. And then you did it, you won, and it led you into something that gives back, that gives you so much joy.
Yes.
That your grandmother would have loved. Like, that's God.
Yeah. Oh, it definitely is.
That is like, and honestly, I think that's the whole point of life.
Yeah.
That's what I've come to believe, is that the whole point of life is whatever you've gone through, whatever you achieve, how can you give back?
Yeah.
Like, what can you give back to help other people along their journey too?
Yeah, I was a pastor of my own church. I went to seminary.
Oh, you're kidding?
No, I have a degree. And so I went to seminary. So I have a music degree, and then I went to seminary. And so I pastored my own church for 5 years too. And with youth pastor when I moved to St. Louis also. I officiate weddings, and I have to do funerals every once in a while, which I don't like. I actually officiated my own dad's funeral.
Oh, I bet that
2
was
days
really
before he
hard.
died, he wanted me to do it. And I said, Dad, I can't. And he goes, damn it, I want it done right. I don't care how old you are. If your dad says,
yeah, right, you listen.
Right, you do it. And so when you talk about God things, I was like, how am I going to do this? Because I'd been taking care of him. I was devastated. And we were starting to clean out his farm, and my son cleaned out a room, and he had a briefcase, and he goes, here, this looks important. It looks like Papa stuff. And I'm like, oh, okay. I start going through it, and I find this paper, and I start bawling so bad I couldn't even, my sister's like, what's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? In 1981, with him owning funeral homes, in 1981, he had to go through a grief counseling class so he could counsel people. And at that class, they had them write their own funeral. Laying in front of me, I swear, was what he wanted his tombstone to look like, what scriptures he wanted, what flowers he wanted, what music he wanted, messages to me, my sisters, what he was most proud of him. It was all there. The whole service was in my lap. And I was bawling. I just kept saying, thank you. It was perfect. It was perfect.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
So yeah, so being a minister, I'm not your typical minister either,
right?
As you can imagine.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of depth to people that you don't know when you first meet them.
Yeah, that's
so a lot of depth. People look at me and go, "She's cray." You got that right.
Yes.
But there's a lot of depth. People will go, "You're a minister? What?"
I love it. I think that's incredible. So you did that for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And what made you want to do that? Like, of all things, because I mean, I know you grew up in a funeral home. I'm sure maybe seeing like life and death the way that you did kind of impacted you in some way, but
I'm going to say the car accident did a lot, because a lot of godly things happened on the highway that night. The night of the car wreck was the night that I had been teaching at the school for 13 years, and I had decided to go into youth ministry. And I had been going to seminary, I kind of liked it. And as I'm driving down the road, and like I said, I run into my family, it's my baby and my husband that were being airlifted and sent away. And when I drove up, a man and a woman who had just left my concert where I had their kids. He was a Baptist church minister, and his wife. Well, he happened to be a first responder, so he went down to the car to take care of my husband. And she, Tiana, stayed with me. And she said, let us pray. Well, no. I just quit my job to go into ministry, and this is what's happening to me. And it's like, no, I don't want to pray. I was so angry with God. Mm-hmm. And she stayed with me the whole time. And so they finally let me come down the embankment. They were getting ready take my husband. And they said, you can come down. And I said, no. And she said, let's pray. And she put her arms around me. She said a prayer. And everything went quiet. You have all these sirens and helicopters and things coming in. And peace came over me. And I walked down. And they wouldn't let me come around because the accident was so bad. And I remember rubbing his hair and saying, it's going to be okay. Patrick's okay. It's going to be okay. And I was just very calm. And then I came back up the hill, and it was chaos. Well, the lady coming this direction with the kid that hit him head on, it was a 19-year-old drunk driver. Kid that hit him head on, the first car behind that was a pediatric intensive care nurse who had just gotten off duty. So they'd gotten Patrick out of the back seat, who was one, got him out of the seat, and she was taking care of him. So they gave him to me, and he was screaming and crying. And I kept saying, you stop, you got to stop. And the paramedics, you got to do, get in there here. Well, this man came up and he said, do you mind if I say a prayer for your baby? And I'm like, whatever.
Yeah.
And he put his hand on Patrick's head and he said a prayer, and Patrick goes, and he laid down. And I was like, my first thought was like, oh my God, you squeezed his head too hard. And the guy just said, God bless you, and walked on. And I didn't, they put us in an ambulance, and that's a whole nother story because they put me in the ambulance with the kid. His face was all cut in half. And finally a patrolman came by, and they put us in his car and took us to the hospital. And when we got to the hospital, all they had to do to Patrick was get some glass out of the back of his head. So I asked Tawana that night, I said, do you remember? I said, it had to be someone from your congregation that came up and prayed for Patrick. And she said, what do you mean? And I said, the man, he had a gray paisley shirt on, and he put his hand on Patrick's head and said a prayer, and Patrick was calm after that. And she said, I never left your side, and there was never a man. I said, no, the man in the gray paisley shirt. Christy, there was not a man. Nobody prayed for Patrick. And I'm like, yes, they did. And it took me a long time to tell people that story because, once again, they'd think I was crazy. But I know there were angels there that saved my son's life. And he's a walking miracle right now because of that. And the man didn't exist. The man did not exist.
I've heard stories like that.
I had too, but I thought these people are crazy.
I never thought they're crazy. But
did.
It's just like, wow.
And so it happened to us too. So that's what really got me into ministry. God, it wasn't God that was punishing me. That it was Satan that did not want me to be a minister.
Right.
Did not want me talking to people. Did not want me
telling that story.
Telling that story. So that. Hopefully that answers your question.
No, it does.
I kind of go.
No, that was incredible.
My husband goes, before I left, he goes, don't start blabbering.
Listen, I'm a blabberer myself.
I blab.
I've got ADHD.
I do too.
I go to so many different places in a conversation, but that's the fun of it, isn't it? But no, I think that's incredible. And I love hearing stories like that because it reminds you that not everything that exists is just what we see with our eyes. Mm-mm. That faith, and hope, and there's another world that exists within us. Even just the way that we believe and the things that we believe in affect our entire lives, And I just, it's incredible.
But it has stuck with me, and it's what I do. Man. And when I can share that story, I share it.
Yeah, I would too.
I share it. And
oh my gosh!
Like I said, I've lived a life.
Yes,
I have lived a life of so many things.
And you're still so positive, and you're still so full of joy, and you're still so Mrs. Bubbly. And I that's why I was so drawn to you in the sauna.
In the sauna.
I really was, because I just think that's so rare. Like, so many people are just like, they have like this cloud over them,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I wonder, like, do you feel like there's any specific thing, or maybe it's just your faith or whatever it is, like, what keeps you that way? How do you stay so positive when so many bad things have happened to you? And even still, you're still living through hard things with your husband still going through cancer, and of course, no guarantees. And like, how do you stay so uplifting and positive and such a good state of mind?
Well, it is my faith. It definitely is that. It is me taking care of me. Once again, like I said, it took a long time to realize that. But just taking care of me mentally and physically. Not physically necessarily. Sometimes I just had 2 candy
when
bars.
You can.
I just took 2 candy bars and a Diet Coke before I
that's taking care
walked
of
in
you
here.
too. Sometimes, little giving yourself a little treat.
Yeah, a little every once in a while. And I think teaching. I know growing up when we moved, I was bullied bad because I had a Southern. I didn't have a Southern accent. I had a hillbilly accent, and people made fun of me at this new school. And going through that, even teachers like, oh, look at little Miss Hillbilly over there playing the French horn. Because back in the 70s, girls didn't play brass instruments, but I wanted to be different.
Yeah.
And I did. And the band director said that in front of the whole choir, in front of the whole band. I went through it, and I don't want to see I never wanted to see students go through it. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I really, really let them see the real me and let them see what was going on in life. And I never hid anything from them. Yeah. And, once again, it's come back. I was telling you, I'm getting ready to officiate a wedding of a student that I taught in 2008. And she will be the first to tell her life was awful. But I saw through that. Those were my favorite kids. Those are the ones, not the ones that were the privileged ones, that the most popular kids. Mm-hmm. Those were not the ones that spoke to my heart.
Right.
And I mean, they do.
Right. You love them all, of course.
I love them all. But it was the ones that needed someone like me. Well, and I didn't realize. It took a long time to realize I was what you needed in your life.
God put you there for a reason. He knew exactly every single student that would cross your path that needed someone like you.
And when I taught in Ferguson, Florissant, I remember, you're not allowed to talk about religion, but I would walk by each of my students. I would put my hand, doing great, and I'd say a prayer for them. I would pray for every one of them, but they didn't know that.
Right, of course. They didn't need to.
Oh, she's taking care of it.
No, I love that so much. I think that's beautiful. And I really believe that the things that you go through, that God, pulls you through, he takes and he rebuilds you and he gives you a purpose in it.
And I learned it's okay to be angry sometimes.
Yeah.
Like I said, I was angry with God for a while because I couldn't figure out why am I being punished when I'm coming to work for you. Mm-hmm. But, I did that for 5 years and then I missed teaching. I had to go back to the kids. Yeah. But I still ministered to the kids.
Yeah.
Even though they didn't know it. In my own ways.
And you know what? You can minister without ever talking about religion at all.
You can. And you do. You can and you do. And I did.
Yeah.
And I will continue to do that.
Amen. Honestly, the way that you live, the lives that you impact, the light that you carry, the love that you give, the kindness that you give, that's all just a walking testimony in itself.
And age has nothing to do with it.
Age has nothing to do with it.
Nothing to do with it.
I love that so much.
Nothing to do with it.
Is there any encouraging word? Do you have any encouraging word for anyone listening that you would like to leave with them before the episode is over?
I go back to the first one I said, be yourself. Everyone else is already taken. Don't be and try to be like somebody else because we're all different. Just like those rocks, we are all different and we're all beautiful. And there's beauty in every single one of you. Every single one of you.
That's right. Amen. There is a purpose for you specifically, or you wouldn't have been created.
Exactly.
You were meant to be who you were created to be.
And take the bad stuff and learn from it and make the positive out of it. That's what you've got to do. You can't let it get you down.
Right.
And it will.
It will.
It will.
It absolutely will.
Suck you in. But come out on the other side and find the lesson in that.
Amen.
Badness.
Yeah, that's right. And you don't get to go around that. No one gets to skip the bad parts. Like that's just life.
No.
Life is life, and we all have our things that we will go through. And you get 2 choices every time you're faced with a really hard thing. You get 2 choices. Will I let this destroy me, or will I let it rebuild me? Yeah. Will I let it reform me and restore me? And you do.
And you find the positive. Find it. It's there. It's just sometimes hard to see. Sometimes it's in a song like Barney.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's in, Charlie saying, let's go do this,
Yeah, I love it so much. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come here today.
Like I said, it was bizarre meeting you in the sauna.
Hey, you never know.
You never know.
God always has a plan. He's like, all right, we're going to...
And she didn't even know I was a minister.
No.
This was new just now.
I didn't know half of this. That's why I wanted you to come on here. I was like, I gotta know more about this lady. I
I
want to know
got so much more.
I want to know how she's so positive and uplifting and encouraging. And again, I go back to the thing that impacted me in that day, on that day specifically. I don't even know what I was thinking or what kind of state of mind I was in. I just remember hearing you say, I come here and I take care of myself so I can be my best self for him whenever he needs me. And I just thought that's love.
Mm-hmm.
That is love. And it's self-love. And I think the older I get, the more I realize that self-love is not selfish.
Right. And a lot of people think that.
Yeah. It's not selfish. Like you know, I just think
taking care of yourself is not selfish.
Yeah.
And that's hard, especially for people in my generation.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, I agree.
My generation, really, you think it's selfish.
Yeah.
You don't take care of yourself. You are the one that takes care of everybody.
Yeah. And you know, I realized something in like my darkest moments. Who am I to not love myself when God loves me so much?
Mm-hmm.
When God created me specifically with his love and his purpose, who am I to be like, oh, I can't love that? I am created by God. Like I owe it to God to love what he created as me, of me, you know?
And there's no one else like you.
That's right.
And it's always a positive thing.
Amen. Amen. Well, thank you again so much. You're so awesome. And
well, thank you.
I mean, I'll probably have you again at some point and we'll talk more about all the other stuff that you could share.
So
yeah.
I got so much craziness in my life.
But I love it. Thank you so much. And is there any way for people to find you or anything like that? Do you have social media or anything like that? It's okay if you don't.
I have my email and Facebook.
Okay. So you're on Facebook as Christy Wilson-Smith?
No, actually I hide. Because I was a school teacher.
Oh.
No, because I was a school teacher, and then by that time we were too deep into it too.
So you were like, yeah.
So it's Charlie Christy Smith.
Ooh, look, very clever.
And so you don't know how many times I get called Charlie, and I'm like, yes. Once again, I've been called worse. Charlie Christy Smith, and then Christina Wilson-Smith at gmail.com.
I always like to give people that option, just because sometimes there's someone that's struggling.
If you need a speaker, if you need anyone to come and. Yes. No matter what age. I talk, like I said, I read books to kindergarten kids. I talk to high school, middle school students.
You sing at nursing homes?
I sing at nursing homes. I'll sing anything.
I love it.
Sing. No, I'll sing whatever you want.
I love it. Well, that's a wrap for today, guys. Make sure you go and if you have any questions or if this inspired you and you have questions for Christy, feel free to reach out to her, whether it's through her email or her Facebook. That's Charlie. But she is just such a light, and I know that she'll have great advice for you. And I appreciate you guys listening in today.
Thank you.
Thank you.